Welcome to the SFSP Program Overview Training for new sponsors. During this recording, you will hear about the general overview of the Summer Food Service Program, including the purpose, record-keeping requirements, meal patterns, etc. The Summer Food Service Program was established to ensure that children continue to receive nutritious meals during the months when school is not in session. These meals are provided to children in low-income areas and make meals available at no cost to participants. These meals can be provided to children, which, as the USDA defines it, is any persons 18 years of age and under. In order to participate as a sponsor in the SFSP, your organization must be a certified nonprofit that is capable of managing a food service program. Examples of sponsors who are eligible to participate in the SFSP include schools, units of government, nonprofit organizations, and some universities and colleges. Sponsors may participate in the SFSP as an independent center or as a sponsoring organization with multiple facilities under one SFSP agreement with RIDE. Sponsors that participate in the Summer Food Service Program are subject to a number of responsibilities. While the list of responsibilities on the screen are not exhaustive, some key areas are meal pattern compliance, procurement, accurate claims for reimbursement, civil rights, record keeping, training, monitoring, and financial management. As a sponsor, you will need to understand these responsibilities so that you can maintain regulatory compliance and program integrity. In order for a location to be an eligible site, it must demonstrate that it is serving a designated low-income population. There are two types of site eligibility within the SFSP, and they are area eligibility and eligibility based on meal benefit applications. The type of eligibility used will depend on the meal site type, which we will discuss in the following slides. Area eligibility is an area in which at least 50% of the children residing in the area are eligible for free or reduced price meals at their school. Meal benefit applications are a form that collects information on the income and size of a participant's household. Sites using this method must have at least 50% of their participants qualify for free or reduced meals. Sites may either distribute, collect, and determine these applications themselves, or use meal benefit application determinations from a school, depending on the type of meal site. There are several ways you can determine area eligibility. If one method doesn't qualify your site, we recommend trying each of the different methods. First, you can use school data, which displays the percentage of students who qualify for free and reduced price meals in each school. This report is released by RIDE each winter to sponsors, and any school that meets 50% qualifies for area eligibility. Please note that this is also sometimes referred to as the eligibility report. A site can either be located in a qualifying school or in the attendance area of a qualifying school. Next, you can use census data, which can be verified through several different mapping resources, all of which are linked at the end of this PowerPoint. Each of these mapping tools have instructions on how to interpret the results. In general, though, each map typically has each type of result color-coded. So, non-eligible areas will appear on the map as one color, while area-eligible areas will be a different color. Finally, some welfare agencies or housing authorities may use income criteria that matches or is lower than the income guidelines used in the SFSP and therefore would qualify. For any of the above eligibility methods, the sponsor should make an initial determination and save that related documentation, but all determinations must be validated by RIDE before they can be approved. Within the SFSP, there are multiple types of summer meal sites: open, closed or enrolled, and camp. We'll start by talking about open meal sites. These sites must be qualified based on one of the area eligibility methods that were reviewed in the previous slide. At an open site, meals are given to qualifying children on a first-come, first-served basis. Participants do not need to prove residence within the community, and attendance does not need to be recorded at this type of meal site, but all participants must be 18 or under in order to be considered eligible. It is your job as a sponsor to allow access to the largest extent possible to all participants, and therefore you must eliminate any barriers to participation, which may include physical barriers, allergies, disabilities, and language barriers. In order to ensure meaningful access, you will need to advertise the program within your community in methods that will most effectively reach all residents. Next, we'll review closed enrolled sites. Closed enrolled sites can sometimes be referred to as either just closed or enrolled. Closed sites may be able to qualify as a site through area eligibility or by collecting meal benefit applications either from the participants themselves or through school data. These sites are only eligible to feed participants who are enrolled in their organization or program, rather than the community at large. Because of this, attendance and enrollment information for each participant is required. Closed enrolled programs must provide recreational, cultural, religious, or other types of organized activity for a specific group of children. The last type of meal site is a campsite. Camps must offer regularly scheduled food service to enrolled participants as part of their organized program. This is similar to the requirement for closed enrolled sites, but there are a few differences that should be considered when determining whether your site should be designated as a closed enrolled site or a camp. Camps are able to claim one additional meal per day than open or enrolled sites, but any camps that operate under the SFSP, whether they are residential or non-residential, must collect meal benefit applications from all enrolled participants. Or alternatively, camps may be able to gather the meal benefit application data from school districts. Camps cannot use area eligibility for a site since they may only claim meals for reimbursement for those participants who qualify for free or reduced price meals. Meals served to participants not qualifying for free or reduced price meals must be subsidized by the sponsor from non-federal funds. School sites that provide meals only to enrolled academic summer school students are not eligible to participate in the summer food service program. Summer enrichment programs held within a school may operate in the SFSP as a closed enrolled site, but if the summer program offered is a requirement of graduation, this would be considered a summer school and meals would be claimed for reimbursement under the NSLP rather than SFSP. If a school site offers a summer school program but is also eligible and willing to provide meals to the broader community as an open site, then summer school students could be served and claimed under the SFSP as part of the broader open site.
Each site will also fall into one of two categories, rural or urban. These designations are defined by the USDA and are important as it will impact the amount you are reimbursed per meal. Sites that qualify as rural are eligible for a higher reimbursement rate and are also eligible to operate a non-congregate meal service, which would allow participants to consume meals off-site. Urban sites receive a slightly lower reimbursement rate and are not eligible for non-congregate meal service. Instead, these meals must be eaten on-site. In order to determine if your site is considered urban or rural, sponsors should use either the USDA's Rural Designation Tool or the No Kid Hungry Summer Meals Eligibility Map. Note that the No Kid Hungry map will show sponsors information regarding their rural and urban status as well as if the site is considered to be area eligible. The eligibility duration of a site will differ based on the type of meal site. Open and closed enrolled sites that are determined with school data or census data will maintain their eligibility status for 5 years, while camps and closed enrolled sites determined by meal benefit applications must be redetermined every year.
Linked on this slide are resources to determine site eligibility using census data. In order to be approved to participate in the SFSP, new sponsors must complete all new sponsor training materials. Every year after that, all sponsors must attend a mandatory annual training hosted by the state agency. This applies to both new and returning sponsors. In addition to attending state agency-provided training, as a sponsor, you are also required to train your administrative and operational staff prior to the start of your program. The topics that staff get trained on should pertain to their specific responsibilities within the SFSP. Therefore, not all staff need to be trained on every aspect of the SFSP. However, all staff are required to receive civil rights training annually, regardless of their responsibilities within the program. In order to support training efforts, you will need to maintain records of all the attendees, the agenda and date of training, and sign-in sheets for the training, showing that all staff have received training. The agenda should have the topics listed out separately, so we can clearly see what items were covered, such as civil rights, meal counting, food safety, etc. If possible, have the staff list their associated meal site, since RIDE will look to see that a staff member from each site attended the training during a program review.
In addition to training all administrative and operational staff, sponsors are also responsible for monitoring their meal service sites on a regular basis to ensure compliance with program regulations. These are often referred to as site visits or monitoring visits. As an overview, sponsors are required to conduct a full site review for all sites. Sponsors may also be required to conduct a pre-operational visit and a site visit within the first 2 weeks. We will talk further about each of these visits in the next slides. Monitoring is critical to the SFSP as it ensures that sites operate according to federal requirements and that program integrity is being upheld. It also ensures that accurate records are maintained, available, and that site staff are completing them correctly. Lastly, monitoring ensures that children in the community are receiving nutritious meals, and that meals are going only to children who should be receiving them. As discussed in the previous slides, you will need to make sure that all of your monitors have been trained on all necessary topics so that your monitors are equipped to identify and correct any issues noted during a monitoring visit. While at the site, the monitor must review the meal counting and claiming procedures that the site has established. This includes how staff are taking meal counts, if they are marking off second meals correctly, and making sure that they are not marking adult meals as any children meals, whether it is first or second. The monitor should also be making sure the meals that are served are meeting meal pattern compliance, and that all meals marked off to be included in the claim for reimbursement are in fact reimbursable. Monitors should also be making sure that sites are operating in accordance with general program regulations, such that food safety measures are being followed, the "And Justice for All" posters displayed in a visible place, etc.
Meal pattern requirements are essential to the summer food service program, as they assure that participants receive the well-balanced, nutritious meals they are entitled to. These requirements are developed to help children meet their nutrient and energy needs, which is why minimum portion sizes are established. Because of this, these requirements need to be met at all times during the program. You can also expect RIDE to closely review the compliance of these requirements during a program audit and annually during the sponsor application renewal process. For summer, you can elect to serve one of the following meal types: breakfast, AM or PM snack, lunch, or supper. Any combination of two meals aside from lunch and supper can be served together at either open or closed sites. Camps are able to serve up to 3 meals a day in any combination. This slide shows examples of the different meal service combinations that non-camp sites can elect to implement. You are limited to a total of 2 meal services per day, with the exception of combining the lunch and supper meal services, which was mentioned on the previous slide. As you know, all meals served under the SFSP must contain all the required components in at least the minimum quantities in order to be considered reimbursable. When all components are provided with every meal, RIDE refers to this type of meal service as straight serve and is the method used by most SFSP sponsors. However, if you are an SFA, you will have an option to implement a different style that we will discuss later in this training. The SFSP meal patterns are as follows. Breakfast must include milk, fruit or vegetable, or a combination of both, as well as a grain. Lunch and supper. These meals are only considered to be complete and reimbursable if they contain milk, a grain, a meat or meat alternate component, and the minimum required 2 servings of fruits and or vegetables. A snack. 2 of the 4 meal components must be served in any combination that the sponsor wishes. Please remember in the summer program that fruits and vegetables are considered to be the same component. Therefore, you can't serve apples and celery as a reimbursable snack. In addition, you cannot serve 2 different liquid components as the entire snack. So fruit or vegetable juice and milk is not eligible to count as a reimbursable snack. The meal patterns and serving sizes are configured differently for SFSP than for other programs and should be reviewed carefully. A link to the complete SFSP meal pattern, which includes more information on the serving size of each component, is included at the end of this PowerPoint. Sponsors must establish meal times for each site, and this is done in CNP Connect, which is our meal claiming and application system. Once a time frame is selected, all meals included in the claim for reimbursement for that meal period need to be served within this time frame. We recommend that you give yourself a buffer when filling out this portion of the online agreement. Consider adding 15 minutes before the start and after the end of your planned meal service, just in case food is delivered either earlier or later than normal. RIDE may disallow meals if we see them served outside your time frame that is approved in CNP Connect. If you change your meal service times, you must update this in CNP Connect. These changes must be made and approved before you make any changes to your actual service. In addition to serving meals within the serving times, you also have to make sure that all meals are consumed on site and that all children receive 1 meal before any second or adult meals are served. Lastly, you will need to ensure that you are adhering to any local health and safety regulations. For example, you will need to make sure that your milk is held on ice and that all food is properly stored during service rather than left sitting out in the sun. Per SFSP regulation, all meals must be counted as they are served to each child during the point of service. This includes during field trips. Only those meals which contain all of the required components can be counted as reimbursable. If you receive vended meals that are damaged or incomplete, those cannot be counted as reimbursable meals. As mentioned in the beginning of the training, reimbursable meals can only be served to children, which is anyone 18 years and under. We recommend using the RIDE template checkoff sheet that is shown on the slide. When you train your staff to use this form, be sure they are trained to complete all fields on the form, especially the number of meals received, number of meals available from the previous day, and any leftover meals from that day. During reviews, we often see that these fields are not being completed or are filled out inaccurately. As a result, we are not able to follow the day-to-day flow of meals that were available and served, which can lead to the disallowance of meals. Any sponsor that produces meals for multiple sites or receives vended meals must have some way of documenting the number of meals that were delivered to each site. This is typically recorded through a delivery slip, like the one seen on the slide. Documentation must be maintained not only to show the total number of meals delivered, but also what food items were actually delivered, especially if the food items received vary from the items listed on the planned menu. Please be aware that RIDE will rely heavily on this documentation in conjunction with menus marked with substitutions, invoices, receipts, and when applicable, production records to reconstruct your claim for reimbursement for the review month. As previously mentioned, missing documentation may result in the disallowance of meals, as this is the only means that we have to validate your claim for reimbursement. For schools specifically, RIDE recognizes that there is typically food left over from the school year and that you may have an excess of certain item, which will not necessarily be on the invoices, in which case inventory records would be required. Sponsors that participate in the SFSP are subject to a number of responsibilities. Every year, RIDE conducts regular program reviews to ensure that sponsors are meeting all federal and state regulatory requirements and maintaining program integrity. The number of sites that you operate will determine how often RIDE will review your organization, as well as how many sites will be reviewed. Typically, RIDE will review 1 month of your SFSP operation, although we may ask for records outside of the review month as well if we determine it to be necessary. The list on the screen highlights some key documents and program areas that you can expect RIDE to review. Please note that this list is not exhaustive, and RIDE may ask to view other types of documentation that will help us to verify all program requirements are being met. In regards to all program record retention, the sponsor should be maintaining any records relating to the SFSP for 3 years plus the current year. Program documentation refers to a number of records, including documents that were uploaded to CNP Connect as part of the SFSP application, program expenses, the claim for reimbursement, training and monitoring requirements, etc. These records should not only be maintained, but readily accessible should RIDE conduct an audit or review. As mentioned in the previous few slides, record retention is a key component to successfully operating the SFSP. It's important to highlight why this plays such a vital role in the SFSP. Since RIDE will review all documents related to SFSP during a program review, any documentation that is missing or incomplete will negatively impact the outcome of your review. Depending on the type of document and amount of missing information, your organization may be assigned fiscal action, in which you would need to return program funds to the state. Additionally, you must ensure that at least one person on site has access to program records at all times. If RIDE conducts an unannounced review and no one is able to access all the program records, your organization will be automatically declared seriously deficient, which could result in termination from the program. This concludes the SFSP annual training. On the slide, you will find a number of resources related to SFSP policies and regulations. RIDE encourages sponsors to utilize these resources throughout the SFSP planning and operational phases as needed. If you have questions regarding the Summer Food Service Program, please reach out to any of the following contacts listed on the slide.